voted to, in essence, be annexed. They have been annexed by Vladimir Putin, Russia, and Vice President Joe Biden, he is not happy about it. And he had this to say. It's cut number 10, jumping around, Jeremy. Roll it.
Unfortunately, Russia's leaders have responded with a brazen military incursion, with a purposeful ratcheting up of ethnic tensions inside Ukraine, with a rushed and illegal referendum in Crimea that was, not surprisingly, rejected by virtually the entire world. And now, today, with steps to annex Crimea. We've joined Poland and the international community in condemning the continuing assault on Ukraine's sovereignty and territorial integrity and the blatant violation of international law by Mr. Putin and Russia.
I always think Poland's gotten the rawest deal if we look back in history. Either, I mean, them and the Czechs, I mean, heavens. But I look at the statement and I think, okay, he's making a statement. He's recognizing, hey, this is way out of bounds. And then I think of the actions and what can we do? I mean, there's a number of things we can do. When you're examining the behavior of Russia, and now reportedly they have killed a Ukrainian soldier. That's, I believe, CNN, but I'm not sure. That said, what do you think? What goes through your head?
Well, I think that this isn't so much a return to the days of the Soviet Union, because I don't believe the motivating factor is spreading the communist ideology. I think even in Russia, that's a bankrupt ideology. But so what's the ideology driving them? I think it's really just hyper-nationalism, pride, and that can very quickly turn into fascism and aggression. And I think that's what you're starting to see happen, is the desire for Russia to be great again, to be such a powerhouse on the world stage that it's leading into this type of aggression. And then you add to that, and this may sound silly, but I think it's true, the fact that Putin is an ex-KGB officer. He's 5'5". He clearly has a massive ego problem that is beyond anything that most people can imagine. And you put all those factors together, and that's what you get right now. And it's only going to get worse because people like him surround themselves with yes men.
So if you were designing a strategy, there's obviously energy, and we're looking, he's going to target the areas of the Ukraine where there are resources. That's, I mean, if we look at what his strategy is overall and what he wants to get and if I'm looking at Poland, or excuse me, if I'm looking at Putin, I'm thinking, okay, he's thinking, number one, I've got Crimea. It's done. And now I'm just going to move forward until question mark. How would you answer that question? Putin moves until question mark.
I don't know, to be honest with you. I think that he's a deranged individual. He may not be like the North Korean leadership, but you're dealing with a level of pride and ego that you just don't know where it's going to lead. Now, what's the most likely next step? There is a pattern here, and this is a pattern that we first saw in Georgia, where, much like Hitler, he claims all of the ethnic Russian minorities in the country surrounding him as his own. So the excuse whenever he intervenes somewhere is, well, I need to protect the Russians living in those countries, even though they are not citizens of my country. And all the way back in 2009, if I may brag a little bit, when I was writing about what was going on in Georgia, I said Crimea is the next step. And the reason I was able to tell that was because he was upset about Ukraine moving closer to NATO and to the European Union, and all of a sudden he started talking about these ethnic Russian minorities living near the naval base and in Crimea. And I saw the writing on the wall at that point that he was going to replay the same strategy they used in Georgia towards the Ukraine.
Well, that's one of the many reasons we have you on. Brag away. So,
thank you.
Yeah, well, it's true. It's something that you look at and you say, okay, You get the history, you go back, and this is how we formulate a strategy on how to deal with this man and these dictators. I get the idea that the tone and the actions we've taken, though I see a step up in the sense of NATO working with its membership and looking to protect the Baltics as well as the rest of the Ukraine. I see that, but I get the idea that rather than saying, hey, I'm going to penalize your inner circle and the folks with the dough and businesses, Obama sanctioning, our president sanctioning. Notice I said our president. I want to make that very clear. He's my president. I want him to succeed. I absolutely do. I don't think he can with the present strategy, so I think that needs to change. That said, what if President Obama said, by the way, the missile shield, we're going forward with it. By the way, natural gas and exporting and allowing drilling and fracking on federal lands, we're going forward with it. We have a comprehensive strategy, not unlike the one I played for you with Newt Gingrich a while back, recognizing that, hey, we need to get on board and say, we are going to meet you with force if necessary when it comes to further incursions with help and aid to those that are in need, not with U.S. troops per se. And we're also going to be dealing with the resource issue. Your thoughts on that?
Well, I think the long-term strategy has to be the first thing you mentioned, which is energy independence. That is really the weak point on Russia, because John McCain said something very intelligent the other day, where he said that Russia is a gas station pretending to be a country, and which is language I just love. And I think that that's very true. As for the missile shield, there's some discrepancy in terms of what that actually is. The impression in most circles is that we completely canceled the ballistic missile defense there. Actually, the Obama administration has approved creating a missile defense shield in Eastern Europe, including a site in Poland. But for some reason, that just doesn't get reported on.
Is it on the level of what we did before? I mean, I remember the discussion. I talked to Senator Inhofe about that, I believe, and it was definitely a scaled down version, if memory serves me right. But you feel free to correct me.
Right. Well, I'm not sure exactly. I mean, I know it's definitely a different system, but the advocates of that policy say that it's equal in terms of its power. So I'm not exactly sure what's going on there.
Okay.
But the problem more broadly that we have with Russia is that you can engage in this policy or this form of retaliation, but again, you're coming down to Putin's ego. And so every time you do something, he's going to have to one-up you. And there's a story out there that I think really serves as a microcosm of how the relationship with Russia is going to work. President Bush was having a meeting with Putin, and he said, "Oh, let me show you Barney, and you can see how cute my dog is." And Putin, instead of doing what a normal person would do and say, "Oh, your dog is so cute, let me pet him," he just stares at him, and he says to his aide, "Go get my dog." And his dog is big and comes in, and Putin says to Bush, "My dog is bigger, stronger, and faster."
Wow. We need to get Putin to get his inner child and give him a big hug. There's something really wrong
just
there.
like the guy at the gym that has to scream when he lifts weights and then looks in the mirror to make sure everyone saw it.
Well, wait a second. Is there footage of me at the gym or something? What is that about? I'm telling you, I can lift more.
I was thinking of you.
I could do that. Yeah, exactly. Yes. Well, as a fellow ectomorph, my friend, we can really pound out that weight. I know. In all seriousness, it's interesting because a lot of people want to make it a little more complex than it is when it comes to ego. So I guess we can't really threaten him with extinction in the sense of how we could go with North Korea and say, you come close to us, much like how we dealt with Gaddafi. Remember, Gaddafi came out of his, said, "Hey, look, I know you got Saddam. I just want to live." Dictators oftentimes respond to that. Regimes oftentimes respond to that. It doesn't sound like that's going to work here. 20 seconds.
No, there's no chance of that working. And so what I said was, when this crisis first started, that the only real option we have, and President Obama has exercised it to a degree, was to sanction the people that are around Putin who are just selfish and have no morals and only care about themselves, and they care about their vacations and their bank accounts. And you sanction them so that they can't go on vacations in Europe and the United States anymore, and so that they lose money. That's the only thing they're going to respond to. And so it's good that President Obama has sanctioned 11 officials in Ukraine and Russia, and hopefully there's more of that to come as time goes on. But then again, if you sanction too many officials, then you get into this contest again where then Putin has to say, oh, let me show you how much I don't care.
Gotcha. Ryan, we're going to have you back on to talk about this more. Appreciate you tonight, bro. Thanks. AFR Talk.